Hey, Roxy.
Hey, James.
How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing great. You know why?
Why?
Because Creepy Kingdom has officially launched a Patreon account.
Patreon? What's Patreon?
Well, let me tell you, Patreon is a way that the listeners of the show can support us.
So, like a Kickstarter?
Not exactly. Kickstarter only is a one-time thing. On Patreon, our listeners can support us every month. And in exchange for them supporting us, we will give them special, super awesome prizes.
How much do they have to pay to support us?
They can pay whatever they want. You could pay $1 a month. You could pay $10, $100. It's up to them.
That's really cool. So, how can Creepy Kingdom fans find this Patreon thing?
Well, you could go to creepykingdom.com and check the show notes on our recent episodes, or you could go to patreon.com/creepykingdom. That's patreon.com.
I'm going to go check it out right now.
Me too.
Monster Movie Media presents
Welcome to Creepy Kingdom, a podcast all about the creepiness and spookiness of the Disney theme parks, films, and beyond. I'm your host, Mr. James H. Carter II. And it's time for another Creepy Days episode, where we take a look back at some of the top Halloween events of 2016. Including a look at the Halloween events at every Disney park in the world. Coming up in this episode, author of the book, The Complete Survivor's Guide to Universal Orlando's Halloween Horror Nights, and from the Scare Zone and Diz After Dark podcast, Mr. Christopher Ripley. And we're going to talk all about, you guessed it, Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Orlando. All right, I'd like to welcome Christopher Ripley. Hello.
Hello, James. How are you?
I'm great. How you doing?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Thanking you.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on. So, Christopher is from the Scare Zone podcast and Diz After Dark, but we're having him on because of his book and website. The website, Halloween Horror Nights Unofficial, HHN Unofficial, and the book, The Complete Survivor's Guide to Universal Orlando's Halloween Horror Nights. That's a mouthful.
That is a mouthful. The original title was The Unofficial Story and Guide to Halloween Horror Nights. So I don't know which one is more of a mouthful, to be honest with you.
Well, either way, you won't forget him.
Yeah.
So, we're primarily a Disney podcast, and I know that a handful of our listeners are familiar with Halloween Horror Nights. But since you're the expert who wrote the book on it, why don't you give a little bit overview of what it is to someone that's unfamiliar with it?
Yeah. Well, a lot of Disney fans will obviously be aware of Mickey's Not So Scary, and then in the Disneyland you have Mickey's. Is it Halloween Party?
Yeah, it's just Mickey's Halloween Party. Yep.
Mickey's Halloween Party. Yeah, I've been to both, and I do love both. So from that perspective, it is an event that occurs after the main park has closed, and it is a separate ticketed event that is only, is opened up on select nights only. What makes it incredibly different to what Disney offers is that every year you can bank your bottom dollar that it will be different. And I mean different, I mean completely different from the year previous. Whereas with Mickey's Not So Scary, every year it is pretty much, give or take, the same event. Mm-hmm. But where Universal goes all out is they create these fantastic They call them houses, haunted houses. They call them mazes, haunted mazes in California. And that's where these tickets are really worth their money, because these houses are extremely detailed. I mean, when we say these are movie set quality houses, I mean, these houses make you feel like you are walking through the actual film that they're portraying. So that's what really separates it from what Disney offers.
Oh, cool. So I'm going to guess you're not an Orlando resident.
I am not. I have lived in Orlando.
Okay, yeah, I've lived there, but you don't currently live there.
No, I don't. I don't currently live there. I go back so often. I feel like I live there.
So, how did you come to write the book on the subject?
Well, I've been a fan of Halloween Horror Nights. I've been traveling to Orlando since 1993, I think it was.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so since I was quite young, because I'm in my 30s now, and I've always loved Central Florida. Everything has to offer. I mean, there's something for everybody in Central Florida. I mean, there's just so much, and so I've always loved going there, and I've always loved Universal, and I've always loved Disney. Where the book came about was I knew a few former not cast members. What do they call them? Team members at Universal. Yes. Yeah, and they had told me that Universal had tried to write a book about it, and for some reason they hadn't finished, or it didn't follow through. Other things came up, which at the time Universal, which this is a very important thing to say. Universal, maybe not so much now, but then it is kind of true. They're a lot smaller than Disney. I know they try and compete, and Disney's got a hell of a lot to offer, but Universal, the actual team, I mean the actual creative team, I mean you could probably all squeeze them into my living room.
Wow.
And I don't make light of that. Man, these are incredibly talented, incredibly experienced people. There's just not many of them, and Universal runs a very small team, and so I imagine that probably one of them started doing it, and then hey, we've got to do this, we've got to do that,
right.
And then suddenly you move on to other things. So I kind of picked the baton up and ran with it. I've worked with Universal on the book. I have corresponded with them and done stuff with them.
Oh, nice.
To try and get as much as I can correct. There are elements, because Disney, I mean, other than Avatar, Disney likes to promote everything Disney, and Disney can do that now because Disney has got Marvel, and you've got Lucasfilm and all the other things that they've got. So they've got a huge library of stuff, whereas Universal has to get a lot of third-party cooperation with other people. So they'll, in the early days, they owned Jaws, they owned King Kong, Dracula and Frankenstein and all the others. But with the likes of, Transformers, Men in Black, or, Harry Potter, they've got to work with the people that own those intellectual properties to bring them to their theme park. So with Halloween Horror Nights, that's no different. They work with people that created Freddy Krueger or Jason Voorhees. And those people, because they're outside the company, it's difficult for them then to write about them because they're not Universal people.
Right.
If you see what I mean, they would then have to jump through additional hoops. So that may have been another reason why they didn't write the book. Because me as an independent writer, I can just go ahead and do it. Whereas with them as being a big organization, they may feel that they have to get permission or speak to those other people.
Oh, yeah.
That's the reason why they may not have followed through with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a combination of all those things for sure. Wasn't a big priority because they're busy making all the stuff.
Probably. I mean, to be honest with you, book writing, unless you're J.K. Rowling, it's never going to make you a millionaire. So I don't think the project probably would have made them enough money to warrant all the time and effort that's gone into it.
Right, it's a passion project. But in order to be the most objective, it's best to be, third party like yourself, I'd imagine, to get the full story.
I can get away with saying things. You see, one of the things that I was very careful in the beginning was never to criticize Universal. And to a large extent, I don't. But if there are things they didn't do right, or things that perhaps, maybe the company line is different to actually what actually happened, then, I will try and be more sticking to the truth than the company line. So that I can get away with that as well.
But you had mentioned you worked with Universal, so are they supportive of the book?
They're as supportive as they can be. They can't be too supportive, because going back to the third party thing, they can't make the book official, because then if I've said something in the book that says, because I do talk about, there is a section where I talk about John Carpenter, for example, the chap that created the Halloween franchise, because that has come to Universal in Orlando twice now. So I fear, I speaking to them, they would then feel they would have to approach him. So it's very tricky when it comes into that sort of line.
Right. They don't want to claim it as their own, but they're not trying to shut you down, clearly, because they're working with you on the book, or answer your questions.
Well, no, this is the thing, our website and our podcast in particular, we work, hand in glove with Universal. I mean, Scare Zone, for example, with Logan, we're on the phone or we're emailing them every day. Well, not every day, every week probably. Right. Just trying to line up guests and talk to people and just get I'm sending them questions to see if this is okay and that's okay.
Oh,
I mean, one of the big things that we did work with Universal on Scare Zone was that we managed to interview James Keaton, and James very rarely does interviews, and he was very keen to speak to us to let us know what it's like to play the infamous character of Jack the Clown.
Just to be clear, our listeners don't know who he is and who is Jack the Clown, and what does that mean for Hollywood Horror Nights?
Well, Jack the Clown, I mean, they call him in-house. They call him, Universal Orlando's Mickey Mouse.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's what we're talking about. I mean, this is a character that they created and that they've completely forged in Orlando. And then he's gone to California. And then last year he went to Singapore as well. And he's been massively popular. I mean, he is, a true international icon now. And, he's been around quite a long time. I mean, I think it was 1998, 99, I think, was when he first appeared. Mm-hmm. And James has played him. I mean, other actors have also played him, but James has been like the main actor for him all this time. And then, of course, all of the marketing and the commercials, James has starred in all of those as him as well. And James, he's worked at Universal Studios Orlando since the very beginning, and he's played, Beetlejuice and he's done The Grinch. I mean, everything. Mm-hmm. He's such a talented actor, and we were so keen to have him on because we was just really fascinated by his career. All these different characters and how he portrays them. I mean, I tell you now. I mean, I don't know if it's a secret or not, but there's a mobile Muppet lab in Epcot, and he does Beaker and Professor.
Oh, wow.
Honeydew, yeah. So he does those as well.
Oh, wow.
So he's working for Disney as well as Universal, and he has done for many years. So, talking to Universal, we set that up. And it was quite a lengthy process because we had to speak to them of what areas we were comfortable with. We had to set up some production time with them to get him into a proper studio.
Oh, wow. A lot of coordination. Wow.
Oh, God. Yeah. I mean, I take my hat off. I didn't do much of it. It was mostly Logan and that did all of this. And, and then we wrote the questions, got those approved. We then edited it and sent it to Universal for approval. So there's quite a lot of work went into that. So, and Universal, we're not paying them and they're not paying us. And it's all marketing for them at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. But, so Universal, you can work with. I mean, I wouldn't say you can't work with Disney, but I do know for a fact, perhaps because they're a smaller team at Universal, they are more likely to work with you if you've got something interesting to say.
Wow, that's awesome. So that's I like that though. I like that they see the value of unofficial things such as podcasts, books, blogs, you name it. I'm really glad that Universal's happy to work with everybody.
They're incredibly proactive, Universal, and they're always looking out for new and different things, and they do like to talk directly to the fan community. I mean, they have online Facebook groups that you can join, and they're not really that well moderated, but Universal is directly on there with Universal staff talking to people every single day of the year. There aren't many companies around the world that's, actually doing that, let alone in the theme park industry.
Right. And able to actually respond immediately and not
That's right.
go through whatever. I don't know. go through the lawyers.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because there's some really witty tweeting going on from Universal Orlando's Twitter account in the past few weeks.
That's made international news. I read about that in our newspapers in England. So
really, wow, that's awesome.
It's great marketing. It's a fantastic idea.
For sure. So one of the agendas I've been kind of pushing on Creepy Kingdom is to get some of our listeners that haven't experienced haunted attractions to kind of dip their toe in the water. Yeah. And I've covered a lot of things so far since October, such as Not Scary Farm, which is a Knott's Berry Farm here in Buena Park, California, which I think is a great introductory thing for people on the West Coast. But
they pretty much invented the whole genre, didn't they?
Yeah. So it's very fascinating. That's a story within itself that I'd love to dive into. But yeah, they pretty much created it. But they still don't. They're still really high quality, but they're not so like extreme that people that aren't really familiar with those type of experiences, they're not going to scare them away. Now, Universal, Orlando, and Hollywood has definitely upped the production value, like huge from both of those. But I don't think there's anything really comparable to Not Scary Farm in Orlando or in Florida. I mean, maybe Howl-O-Scream. I've never been to it before. Would you? I don't know. Would you say it was?
Possibly. I mean, Central Orlando has had a bit of an explosion in this type of entertainment. There's more. I think the phrase is mom and pop kind of attractions that are doing this now, and some of them are year round. Some of them are quite light-hearted. I know some of them are quite extreme. One of our writers on HHN Unofficial, he went to one where you camp out in the woods like you would normally, and there's loads of people in tents, and then at some point during the night you're dragged out of your tent and chased through the woods. And he said it didn't live up to what he thought it would be. In fact, it was quite disappointing. But so there are a huge number, and only in recent times. I mean, I don't recall there being that many. About a decade ago, but there seems to be a lot more of that in Central Florida.
I think it's just growing everywhere. In all honesty, I guess I see more and more stuff. But the reason I bring that up, is that for people that are visiting Florida or in Florida, going to Walt Disney World, even going to Universal as a day guest, I do believe that this is not only one of the best experiences that you can have as far as this goes, but you can make it as extreme as you want it to be. You don't have to do everything there, but you could kind of experience it a little bit. You know what I mean?
Well, I would definitely say if you're interested, or say you're on vacation in Central Florida during this time period, and this time period is getting bigger and bigger every year. At the moment, we're sort of estimating it's going to start on the 15th of September and then run all the way through to early November. So it's quite a large window. So if you're in Central Florida during that time frame, I would say definitely go and give it a try. Now, I would tell you this for why. Now, it's no secret. Logan and I will tell you that we are both huge film buffs. Logan is such a film buff because he's a film director. But for me, I'm normally writing about films or film history. And because of that, we're actually not huge horror fans. I know that sounds, crazy, but we're not. So we like the houses that are primarily based on films because we like that feeling of walking through an actual film, with the soundtrack and the costumes and the really detailed and elaborate sets that they build. So that's what Logan and I separately, that's what we both love to do. But if you are, a bit of a chicken, or say you're concerned, you can do a day tour and go during the day where all the lights are on, and you can go along and see how they've built these sets, how they've created these things, and you can put your mind at ease that way. Or you could just go and experience what they call the scare zones, which is the scares that are built in the out and about between all the buildings. So you can see whether they float your boat, whether you can handle those. It's an event where when you go, it's up to you what you do. You can try and do everything, or you can dip your toe in the scare zones, go and watch the shows. I mean, every year there's always a Bill and Ted show, which is not a horror thing at all. It's a comedy show. It sort of rips on popular culture and what's hot and what's not at the moment. Very referential, incredibly funny. Every year it's always very good. You can see that. You can eat some of the food and drink that they do every year, which is always different. It's always got a theme. And experience that. And then maybe try a house. And, the houses, they're not all, there's hardly any I would call extreme.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so.
Some houses are scarier than others, but then you will have houses. I mean, typically every year you'll have at least one house, which they call the comedy house. So there'll probably be a few scares in there, but actually they're trying to make you laugh more than trying to frighten you.
Right.
So that I would advise, go, dip your toe, see what you think. I mean, one year they had a comedy house that was designed and built by Penn and Teller, the famous magicians.
Right.
And then 2 nights out of every week, Penn and Teller were in there actually scaring people.
That's awesome.
So that's the kind of thing we're talking about. This is the level of fandom and dedication.
Wow.
And they've been big supporters of Halloween Horror Nights. I mean, they were there almost from the beginning, because the actual event began in California. Halloween Horror Nights originated from Hollywood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not a lot of people know that. They think because of it being so much more, I don't know, perhaps it's a bigger event in Orlando, people assume that it's always been Orlando, but it has been Orlando for a very long time. I mean, we're in the 27th year this year.
Wow.
So quite a long time.
So when you mean by bigger, do you mean by attendance or by amount of things to do? Because just by size, Universal Hollywood is way smaller than Universal Orlando.
Well, this is the thing, Universal Hollywood, the actual theme park, as you said, is a lot smaller than the Orlando counterpart. But the actual, backlot is pretty massive.
Yeah.
So the event in Hollywood, I think, has got capacity issues. It can only take XY number of people. Whereas in Orlando, you've always got next door Islands of Adventure. So if they ever want to, and they have done it in the past, they can expand it to both theme parks. I mean, every year in Orlando, the number of people that come through the gate always goes up. It always increases, and they always increase the number of nights that they're offering the event. I mean, this year, as I said, we're projecting 7 weeks. Before long, Halloween will be beginning in August. For this event.
Well, that's how we live our lives over here in my household.
Well, that's just the way. Because this is the thing: the event is so popular. I've been going for many years, but I'm not the only one. There's so many British people over here now talk about the event. I mean, I never heard anybody in Britain even talk about Universal Studios Florida. A lot of people just assumed it was another theme park that was attached to Disney.
Right.
Nobody even mentioned Halloween Horror Nights, but I actually see and hear people talk about Halloween Horror Nights over here now.
Wow.
It's not just Britain. I mean, I know there's a hell of a lot of Germans come over, Australians as well. I spoke to some Australians recently who were absolutely gung-ho for the event and were coming over. So it is becoming a true international event.
That's crazy. Just think about it, because we kind of live in a bubble. I think a lot of us theme park fans are, we don't think that anyone knows about this stuff outside of our bubble. But it's nuts. But I did. I want to share a little bit with you and some of our listeners. Maybe some of our older listeners might have heard past episodes, but a little bit about how I got into Halloween Horror Nights, because It's funny enough, I definitely am a horror fan as well as obviously a Disney fan. That's the cross section of of my show. But I never grew up going to like haunted houses, and I didn't realize that everyone else kind of did. I don't know, just me and my group of friends never did it. We didn't have access to it. I don't know. It just wasn't really part of anything that I did. And as I got really into theme parks, obviously I kept hearing about Halloween Horror Nights, and I was intrigued because, so like you were saying about being a film buff, the idea of being able to walk into the environments in films is super appealing to me. It's what I've loved about going to Universal Studios in general. I grew up in California, so I grew up going on the studio tour in Hollywood, which was like, it wasn't a recreation of stuff. A lot of the stuff was the actual places where the movies were filmed, so I always got a kick out of that. And I also, one of my things I loved about being at Disneyland was the immersion that I'm in a completely 360 surrounded, by this experience. So on paper, I was really intrigued. And then I was like, I'm really not into being startled. Like, I really don't care for that at all. And so I just kind of never really did it, and then, but also I'm a huge fan of Robert Rodriguez. And when I found out that there was going to be a From Dusk Till Dawn house at Halloween Horror Nights in 2014, I think that was 24. And I was going to be there during that time. I was like, there's no way that I'm not going to that. I was just like, I don't really care. Like, I'll just deal with the startling. I'm like, I can't miss an opportunity like that. So, I went to it, and I went by myself because the people I was meeting up with, I wasn't meeting up with until a few days later at Disney. And that, I went through the house, and I was blown away is an understatement. I'm just like, wow, I never could imagined that I'd be able to walk through the bar, which I'm not going to say the name on the show because this is a family show.
We know what you mean.
Yeah. There was that. And then I didn't do too much because that was kind of me dipping my toe in that night. I feel like I only went to, how many houses did I do? Did I do 3 or 4? Not a lot. I'm also not into waiting in lines and everything. That's a crazy line. So that's
the downside.
Yeah, but I did Halloween, which was based on the original film. And again, that was another experience where you're like, wow, this is like I just walked into the movie.
I could tell you a funny story about Halloween if you like.
Sure.
Famous Disney Imagineer Jason Sorrell. He wrote the book on the Haunted Mansion.
Right. He will be appearing in the upcoming Foolish Mortals documentary.
Fantastic. Jason, I must say as well, was very helpful with my book. From one author to another, he was incredibly helpful. Jason was, at the early days of Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando, he was one of the production crew that was producing the event. And this was his, I wouldn't say it was his first creative gig, but he was still quite young in the job and still learning the ropes and getting to know everything. And he tells this incredibly funny story. You have to ask him. But they were told what houses. They were asked to look at what houses they should and shouldn't do for the coming event. I mean, I'm talking mid-90s now.
Okay.
And he said, "I know what we do. We'll have a Halloween house. It's Halloween Horror Nights. We'll have a Halloween house, and it's fine. I'll sort it." So then he wrote this letter to John Carpenter because he knew John Carpenter had an office back then on the back lot at Universal Hollywood.
Oh, okay.
And he faxed it to John Carpenter. And then they waited, and then a few weeks later, he got this fax through saying, John Carpenter says, "Thank you very much, but he's incredibly busy." Da, 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 da. And then, for some reason, the letter fell into the laps of Universal Orlando Legal, and they were like, "You can't approach these people directly."
Wow.
They gave him all kinds of He got in all kinds of trouble over that. But he said it was actually just really nice of John Carpenter to actually respond and say, thank you very much. We're really, really happy, really, proud that you've approached us. But unfortunately, we're too busy on that score. And we've on Scare Zone, we've actually contacted John Carpenter a few times, and he's exactly the same, incredibly nice guy. So
I can't wait for that interview when you guys finally get him.
Well, this is it. We just keep trying to do diaries all the time, and it's. I mean, I don't know how old he is or where he is in his career right now, but the man is absolutely flat out busy, incredibly busy man.
Yeah. He's always working on something. I feel like he's involved in the new Halloween reboot too. So,
I think he is. Yeah.
So, amongst other things,
he's like the Steven Spielberg of horror. He's just constantly busy.
Yep. So back to that 2014. For the bulk of the night, what I really started to love the event was hanging out in those scare zones. Because then I realized I'm like this. Like I loved it more than going to the houses, because I was like, I want to be immersed in this environment and with these actors that are just so awesome. Like they're always like they don't break. They create such a great experience. And particularly there was a Purge scare zone that year.
Oh yeah.
And I hadn't even seen any of the Purge films, but I knew, I got the idea of what it was about. So I wasn't super excited about like the Purge as a property being there or whatever, but just being in that kind of environment where there's just so much going on, and there's it's kind of like a play that's going on like all around you. And if you follow people, like there's a story unfolding. Like it is absolutely incredible where they're like rounding up people to auction off and all this stuff. And I was just like, and then the just random fire, constant screams and sirens. And then the announcement, the annual Purge. Well, it was just like, I kept finding myself going back to that environment. And that's really when I kind of fell in love with the event. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's worth mentioning, the scare actors. I mean, some of them are professional actors, but more than most are just guys and girls that are incredibly passionate about being a scare actor and performing. I mean, how many people get the chance to be in a Purge movie? Not many.
Right.
How many people can go every night and be in a Purge scare zone? And actually, perform this performance art to all these different people every night, particularly when there's no particular script. It's all kind of loose, and you just have to know your character, and you come back time and time again. These people, I'll just show you a very brief example. There was a chap, I don't think he does it now, but he ran his own legal practice in New York, him and his wife, and then he used to shut his practice down for the whole of October, relocate to Orlando, and then just be a scare actor for a month.
Wow.
I mean, that's the level of dedication. I mean, you're talking, I know people who are teachers that do this. I know emergency services. I know cops. I know fire officers that do this. People, a lot of people from retail, and I know a chef that goes there and scare acts. So you're talking a huge bunch of people from professional walks of life to manual laboring and different trade jobs. All going and just having this sheer passion to perform these incredible characters at Halloween Horror Nights. So I think it's fantastic that these people, aren't actual actors.
Right.
They're actually just people with a passion to want to perform and scare people.
I think that passion is the key word. I feel like that's more important than anything. That's what keeps you going.
Yeah.
all 2 months for the
definitely.
crazy
I mean,
amount
these
of hours.
Well, this is it. These guys don't get paid a lot, and the hours, they're not great. Everyone else is there having fun, and they're there working, but it's not work to them. It's this passion that they do, this thing that they do every year, which they absolutely love doing. And so many every year, you know, I don't know what the numbers are just recently, but probably 75, 80% return every year.
Wow. That's a pretty good turnover.
Cast of thousands.
Wow. That's, yeah, you wouldn't think, especially because people have to, you know, they have to stop their other lives, you know, because they can't just not work for the rest of the year just so they're available.
No, that's it.
That's crazy. So let's talk a little bit about this past year. This was 26, and I did get to attend.
Fantastic.
And yeah, I don't even know where to begin. It's kind of overwhelming because actually overall it was incredible. I loved it, and it's funny because the hours, I think it starts at 6 or
about
7,
6, yeah,
something like that, and it goes till 2 a.m. And when you see that, we're like, that's, I'm like, I'm never gonna be here that long.
Yeah.
You know, no way. And we're there to the very end. You know,
You're the ones that have to sweep out the building, are they?
Well, not necessarily. Well, you know, not like, we might have left a little before, but it was definitely after 1. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And not because we were lollygagging, but because we were trying to do everything. You know? And it's like you really need, like, that's a huge block of time, and you really do. You know, you really do need all that time because there's so much to do, and unfortunately, it can only go one night. But there's so much return value there. You know, more than any other Halloween event. I'm sure other ones like Not Scary Farm, like I mentioned, is worth going back to.
Yeah. Well, how many Halloween events are there around the world, even, where you can safely say you can't do everything in one night?
Less than 10, right? I mean, probably.
Well, this is it, isn't it? You know, there is just so much.
Is 2. Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, I'm sure there's more, but I just think of Not Scary Farm because there's so many houses and scare zones, and particularly, it's definitely the most return value or return factor in Southern California. But because even Hollywood, you could definitely bang everything out in one night because I said it's not too big for Universal Hollywood. I mean, but yeah, like, there's just so much going on here. And particularly, as I said, if I was a local, I would definitely have the, you know, pass, whatever pass they have that they can go as much as you want or whatever. Because the scare zones this year, particularly the Vamp 55 one, which was themed to like a 50s vampire attack, I don't know, whatever to call it. Like Homecoming. Yeah, like that. Like, talk about like an immersive play unfolding around you. Like, I could just spend hours in there, and I did spend a lot of time there. And again, that was my kept going back to Scare Zone because
it was incredibly popular. I believe it also won Scare Zone of the Year with their in-house awards.
Oh, wow.
And the rumor is, I say rumor because that's all it is, that a lot of people are saying that it's possibly going to come back this year, but as a house rather than a scare zone.
Ooh, wow. Well, that kind of ties to a little bit of something I wanted to bring up, because we're not going to give a full review of the event because that's a whole episode amongst itself. But, you know, we talked about we love walking into the films, but the original houses and scare zones that they do at Orlando are just so rich that you feel like they're part of something else. Like, they're so good, you know, like it's like particularly Tomb of the Ancients house, like that really, like if you would have told me that was from a movie, I would have believed it. It really felt like it was, you know, and it was so good. And another one thing I want to say too is that, so pretty much every year they have an icon for the year. We mentioned a little bit about Jack, who comes and goes, and there's been several other icons. So this past year was Jack's girlfriend, Chance.
Yeah.
And Chance was actually had her own scare zone where she was there interacting with people. Now, I don't know. I can't imagine that she's there, the main actress that does Chance. Was she actually there every single night?
Well, the main actress that does Chance, she, as far as I'm aware, was not on the stage.
Oh, she wasn't?
No, it was another actress. Although saying that, the other actress who was playing her actually did an incredibly good job, because a lot of good feedback, because where that's located, that scare zone right near the entrance, it's not a great location. It's more of a thoroughfare to the houses that are on the left.
Right.
So you have to really work hard to make that a decent scare zone. And that actress, give her a due. She did really well to do some really good stuff there. All non-scripted, all off the top of her head, just all a great performance piece. But no, the main actress, she did, I think originally, from what I've heard, and this is just what I've heard from fans. This is not what I've heard from Universal. Originally, the character was going to be have much larger appearance in the park. She was going to be seen a lot more, and possibly have her own stage, which would have been similar to the one that Jack had from the year before. But for a number of reasons, possibly to do with marketing budgets and things, that a lot of it got scaled back. So she did appear in all of the marketing. It's her voice and image that you see all the way through the park. The house, the Chance house, it's her that you hear in there. And then Erin, who plays the character, she works full time at Universal. She's played that character like James from the very beginning. So she's quite tied into that character. So when we think of Chance, we automatically think of that actress, which I think is pretty good. Just as a very funny aside, when James in the past wasn't Jack, where he can't be Jack all the time. The other actor that shared the role with him was a chap called Austin, and I believe Austin and Erin actually date, which is quite surreal that Jack and Chance actually in real life are a thing. So
they don't mind like kissing on stage or anything. I don't know.
No. Jack doesn't do that.
I know. I'm just kidding.
But, Austin doesn't work there anymore. I believe he's gone to work for the WWE. So.
Oh wow. So now I'm clear because I was confused. So basically, the Chance that was in the scare zone is not the main Chance.
I think she was. I think the main actress was there on occasion, but for the largest part of the run, it was a different actress.
Oh, okay, interesting. Because I just assumed that it was because it was so. It was just so spot on. I mean, normally you could tell when somebody else is playing a similar role that it seems a little different, but wow.
But this is the thing, a lot of people thought James Keaton went to Singapore last year to be Jack out there. A lot of people thought that. It wasn't. It was a completely different actor. But that actor studied James Keaton and got his mannerisms and his voice and, all of his things off to a real, and the makeup, they put the exact same makeup and costume on him. So a lot of people thought he went out there as well.
So what we're saying here is that we're dealing with some people that take this very seriously down to mannerisms. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But overall, I've heard on other podcasts and people that talk about Hollywood Horror Nights that they didn't really like Chance as an icon and they didn't think it worked and all that stuff. And I don't know what any of those people are talking about because I thought it was incredible. I absolutely loved her. Yeah. I loved everything. I loved her scare zone. I enjoyed her house. I thought it was fun. I know that people didn't like it that much, but I actually just can't get enough of Chance as a character. And I was just like,
oh yeah.
I'm like,
good. I was going to say, straight after HHN 25, which has been one of my favorite years for a long time, when Jack was the icon, I said to Universal then, I said, next year, bring him back. I said, because he's done so well this year, bring him back.
Right.
And they pretty much said, well, I think you may be happy for what we're going to do for 26. And then, of course, then they announced that Chance was going to be the icon. So, I like you. I was very pleased when I heard that news, and I thought she did incredibly well.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan. I guess we won't be seeing her for a while, I guess, but because we saw her 2 years in a row.
Well, you never know.
You never know. That's true. But I'm like, I want a chance movie. Or I'm a huge fan of the characters. So
I have said this to Universal till I'm blue in the face. You need to make a Jack film. I keep saying it.
Oh yeah.
They've got their new Monsters universe, which you can read about in my other book, Universal Monsters Origins, which is quite a short title for me. Little plug there.
Yeah, it's all good.
And I've said to them, they've got this Monsters universe coming up. You can set your own rules and regulations of what that could be, and you can have Jack in there. You can put him up on the pedestal with Phantom and Dracula and Frankenstein's monster. You can do that. Go ahead and do it. But I talk to James Michael Roddy quite often, who's now a Disney Imagineer. He was the one that did the Death Star as Epcot. And he's been doing Star Wars stuff at the theme parks recently, and he created with another chap, Jack the Clown.
Oh, okay.
And he calls him his Mickey Mouse as well. And I said to him about it, and he said, we did think about it. We did put forward a rough outline of what we thought, but at the end of the day, in case it was not a success or in case there was an issue, we thought, well, we don't want to tarnish our Halloween Horror Nights brand, which is incredibly successul. So maybe that's the reason.
Right.
Maybe they don't think they can pin a whole film on him. Who knows?
I don't know. I mean, it has the potential to not go well, so I understand that, because it has to be written really well. It's got to be something really quality, because otherwise it just seems like a commercial or something. So, but
yeah, I think the problem they would have now is probably American Horror Story have nicked the carpet under his feet with Twisty, because Twisty, when you think about it, is fairly similar to Jack. But don't forget, Jack was around a hell of a lot longer before Twisty ever turned up. So
that's true. So briefly, I just want to mention that. The American Horror Story house was a headliner attraction. That was incredible. That
also won House of the Year.
Oh, it looks like my tastes are right in line with
you have a good taste, James.
Because, I mean, I've seen the show, I've seen the stuff from the seasons, I've seen a handful of episodes. I'm not super into it, so it wasn't exciting in that element, but still, it was just being able to walk through the hotel and all that stuff, and again, I was like, overall, I pretty much thought I liked every house except for The Walking Dead, which is funny because I hear other people saying how much they loved it, and it's again like on podcasts and stuff, and I'm just like, what is going on in this world? I'm just like, and I'm a Walking Dead fan I'm a fan of the television show. Now I've only been to 2 houses. I didn't go to any of 2 Walking Dead houses. I didn't do any of their other ones that they had in Orlando, but I did do Walking Dead house in 2015 in Hollywood. So that's my only frame. It's my only frame of reference, I guess. So I wasn't even comparing it to other houses, but I don't know. I just didn't really like it. It just didn't connect with me at all.
To be honest with you, the house that year in 2015 and the house this year at Orlando were probably the 2 best Walking Dead houses they've ever done as well.
Well, I don't know. Yeah. Guess it's not working with me.
Well, this is it. If you don't like those 2, then you're definitely not going to like the other ones they did.
But I really liked the Hollywood 2015 house. So
well, it was a great house. That year, they basically did, and it's very rare they do this, but they did almost identical houses on both coasts.
Oh, okay.
And so I went to both events, and then went to Hollywood first, saw that house, and thought it was incredibly well done. I mean, it was incredibly scary and intense. And then I go to the Orlando one, and I'm just sort of kicking my heels going through it. There was nobody in it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, almost the same set, but just nobody in it to do anything.
Interesting.
So, that year, the one in Hollywood, that really was a good house.
Yeah, and that was definitely filled with walkers for sure.
Oh, wow, definitely.
So we got 27 coming up,
Yeah.
and so I know it's kind of early. It's just January, but I know this is a year-round thing for you with your website. But is there any rumors or anything boiling up?
There are. There was the oldest rumor that we've had, which came back. This was last summer. This rumor came up, and it was that American Horror Story would be a multi-year deal. So
okay,
it wouldn't just appear last year and then that was it. The sources that we had, and we've had another one this year, also confirming again that it would be coming for the 27th event here this year in Orlando, presenting the seasons that it didn't present the year before. Pretty much, we'd heard a sort of an overarching rumor from unsubstantiated sources that it was going to come for 3 years. So we don't know that for sure. We've heard that it definitely 2. Well, I say definitely with this,
right.
with not a capital D.
Right.
It was coming this year and then possibly again next year based on how successful it is. Now, Walking Dead, that's been at Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando 4, maybe 5 times now. And I think a lot of the fans, although the show I believe is still popular, a lot of the fans of Halloween Horror Nights are getting a bit fed up with The Walking Dead.
The novelty's over, right?
The novelty's over. The main complaint with the house is when they did the deal with AMC, there was a very strict clause saying that any of the actors' likenesses could not be used. So, because of that, they don't have any of the characters from the films. They literally just pretty much have walkers and victims. That's pretty much it. Whereas American Horror Story, I mean, you've got all of those actors, you've got Lady Gaga and Kathy Bates and people like that appearing in that house last year. Not them personally, but you've got actors playing their parts. Yeah. So they went all out on that house. And I think that's what was one of the big successes of it last year, was that they could do that. So if they carry on with that for this year, then no doubt I think it'll be a success. The other one that we've heard rumors going back to December was that the Tom Cruise's The Mummy would be appearing.
Oh, okay.
The production company that works with Universal on and off for different projects that's actually producing this with them, they have quite a lengthy contract with them, and I'm nerdy enough to have actually read it. And it does specifically mention Halloween Horror Nights. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So in terms of cross-marketing and cross-promotion, it does give the option there for them to build a house without too much hassle, really. And John Murdy, who's the producer of the Hollywood event, I mean, he's been tweeting quite a lot recently saying about how there's this big film coming out that's not been released yet, but he's read the script and he's building a house from it. So we're kind of suggesting that it's probably going to be the Mummy Tom Cruise film. So hopefully, because I'm like you, I'm a big Monsters fan, so I hope that is successful.
I think the trailer looks great. I'm very excited about it, and I'm excited about the shared universe that they're building as well. So
yeah, I'm glad that it's wholly different to the Brendan Fraser films, because they're done. They were great at the time, brilliant. I'm glad they've taken it in a whole new direction and perhaps gone back to something that's more akin to the original films.
Right.
Rather than the Brendan Fraser, which is kind of like Indiana Jones kind of style film, which is nothing wrong with that, but I'm just glad that they've taken it in a different direction.
Sure, getting back to horror for sure. And yeah, I mean, there's no reason why Universal can't remake these films and make them be good, and also have them as houses in Halloween Horror Nights. It's a no-brainer.
Well, that's right. The classic monsters have appeared at Universal on both coasts many, many times. I mean, Hollywood, you had that House of Horrors that was a full-time attraction year-round there, didn't you?
Yeah, and then closed down to... I don't know what they initially were going to put there, but now it's where the Walking Dead year-round attraction is in Hollywood.
Yeah. I like that old House of Horrors. I like the bit with because I'm a huge Hitchcock, which is my new project that I'm working on. A huge Hitchcock fan, so I love the fact that they had like Hitchcock references in there.
Yeah, I guess just wasn't getting the foot traffic that it needed to.
Yeah, I guess not. I mean, we need more Hitchcock in Orlando. You've got, this
Psycho.
is where Hitchcock actually made his films in Hollywood.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas we did have a really good Hitchcock attraction that they demolished and put Shrek in there. Which all rumours are pointing to the fact that that's now going, Shrek. But thank you for ruining our Hitchcock attraction.
It's almost as good, Shrek. No, I was kidding. I never experienced the Hitchcock attraction.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was fantastic. A little known fact, and Universal don't like me telling many people this, but this is our secret between us and the listeners, was Jack the Clown was born in the Hitchcock trailer located behind Shrek. There's a little Hitchcock factoid for you. Had nothing to do with Hitchcock. It's just the trailer was called the Hitchcock trailer.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. That's quite befitting in a weird way, isn't it?
Right. That's random. So I have like my wish for Hollywood Horror Nights, either park for next year. Yeah. On a recent episode of your show, Scare Zone, you had listeners, leave messages about what they hope for next year. So I did that, and the thing that I said, which I really hope comes true, is that there's a house based on Stranger Things.
I tell you now, the people at Orlando, they would like nothing better than having a Stranger Things house. Yeah. I did an article recently on HHN Unofficial where I said I want a Stranger Things house because I know Orlando wants a Stranger Things house, and I'm sure the public would want a Stranger Things house. But I was realistic in this by saying that, it's a new property. Mm-hmm. It's an online show. It's in a medium that's pretty untested, that's sort of emerging, if you like.
Right.
It's gone, it was made on a small budget. It hasn't got the big studios behind it, and it became this huge global phenomenon that everybody, virtually everyone I know has seen Stranger Things, so they've obviously gone and got themselves a Netflix account. So Netflix has obviously done incredibly well out of it.
Right.
So in terms of that coming to Halloween Horror Nights, it's not impossible, but I fear that where it's been such a big hit, and they've got the Series 2 coming, that they may, these big companies, they're all risk averse. And they look at the world differently to what you and I look at it. We would look at it and say, well, that's a cool idea. Why don't they do it? But
right.
From a big company's point of view, they may think, well, could this tarnish our brand? Could this, they may not necessarily know about Halloween Horror Nights or what it does. So I'm hoping that Universal goes to them and says, look, we've worked with J.K. Rowling. Look at what we've done with her. Look at these, Dr. Seuss's widow. Look at the things we've done for them, for those properties. Look at what we can build and achieve. Let us have a go with Stranger Things. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, they should, especially since so much of Stranger Things is like Spielberg 80s influenced. I mean, that would really make it full circle.
Oh, definitely. Oh, they could have, and I know they would have so much fun building, a house and a scare zone and, 2 houses maybe. I don't know. But I'm sure they would have so much fun doing that.
Well, I mean, it may not happen this year, but it seems like it could happen. So, you read a valid point. They might be like, what is Halloween Horror Nights? I don't know. We're just going to make our show. But Netflix in general seems to be kind of outside of the box with their approach.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So
I'm hoping that they think outside the box. So they may think, this is a good way of marketing. This is us talking directly to, a huge number of people that come to this event are their demographic that they're marketing to as an organization. So, it could be a big opportunity for them.
Well, we'll see. Well, what do you want to see next year?
Well, I chose 3 houses because I get asked this a lot, and the 3 I chose, one was Stranger Things. I then went very old school and went down the route of Return of the Living Dead, which I know a lot of people are like zombied out now, but it's a film that I know they've tried to get the rights of, and just not through their fault, but just through the fact that the company that owned the rights had sort of changed ownership umpteen times in the last few years. That it's been quite difficult to pin down who actually owns the thing to get it. It's a film. I don't know if you've seen it in the 80s.
I haven't seen it. No.
No, there's a defense minister. What do you call it? U.S. Defense. They've found some old containers, and they've got this poisonous stuff in. And one of them breaks, and then there's this zombie that comes out of it, and then he sort of attacks people, and then sort of spreads. And there's all these sort of zombies that take over. It's sort of campy. It's 80s. It's got lots of music and references from the 80s. I think it would lend itself tremendously to Halloween Horror Nights, because they do, in the last few years, they've decided to pick, really good horror films that a lot of people, younger people, millennials and whatever, probably might never have heard of, but pick them. And then they've gone and explored. I mean, a really good example of this was American Werewolf in London.
Right, that's what I was thinking when you said that, yeah.
Yeah, a film that, it's not got anything, there's no sequels are being made, there's no TV show, there's nothing to promote. So, they went to John Landis and they said, look, can we use this film? Yeah, let's go with it. And then he was very instrumental in how the houses were built and designed, and then they recreated, these elaborate puppets, these werewolf puppets that sort of attacked you, if you like, inverted commas, in the houses. And then, people were like, well, I've never seen this film. I need to go and watch this film. And then this year, for example, they did The Exorcist, which was a big, a big challenge for them, because the film essentially takes place in one bedroom.
Right.
You've got to build a whole house around it, a huge challenge. But again, a lot of people, I've never seen the film, it's a thing that happened in the 70s, so they've gone and rediscovered that. And then going back to Werewolf, they've gone back and discovered all these films that John Landis has created in his career, so it's, I just love that they go back and do these older houses. So that was one that I chose because I knew they've been trying to get it, and I would just hope that eventually they would get a yes from whoever owns it now.
Right.
And then the other house that I chose, because I just wanted to be incredibly meta, completely off the wall with this, was Jaws.
Jaws, huh?
Because
how do you picture that house?
Yeah, exactly. How do you do it? I don't know. That's why these people, they're geniuses. I'm sure they would know. I don't have a clue. I know it's the one film since I was very young has always terrified me. I mean, there isn't a time where I don't swim in the sea where I'm not thinking about the damn film or hearing the John Williams soundtrack in the back of my mind. I've just come back from Australia where shark attacks happen, almost on a weekly basis. And, from actually being out there and seeing it firsthand, actually how real life terrifying it is, or can be with these things. So to see it built in a Halloween Horror Nights environment, I think would be amazing. But I did put the caveat at the end that although I feel they could technically do it and they've got the rights to it because it's a universal picture, I fear that if they were going to do it, they probably would have done it by now.
Yeah, they probably put that through the ringer a few times, I'd imagine.
It's the thing, incredibly bitter that we don't have a Jaws attraction anymore. I love Harry Potter, but Jaws was number one for me for years, that attraction. I absolutely adored that attraction. And I love seeing Bruce, whenever I go to Hollywood, jumping out at tourists on the tram ride.
Right.
So I really miss it. And one of the things that was a Horror Nights tradition for me in Orlando was they used to call it the Shark in the Dark, which was going on Jaws at night. And that attraction, I'll tell you now, I'm sad it's gone, because at night, that attraction was so scary. You cannot believe.
Wow.
Yeah. So I used to always tell people, you must do Shark in the Dark. But, unfortunately, it's no longer with us. But, they brought King Kong back. I want them to bring Jaws back.
They're probably figuring out something. I don't think we've seen the last of Jaws in the parks.
I hope not. There was talk. Jim Hill did tell me once years ago that they had done a cost model to put an animatronic shark into the lagoon that's inside the studio.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know, for cost purposes or design, for whatever reason, it never happened.
That's funny.
Yeah. Can you imagine? You're walking along, you just bought your churro or whatever,
Yep.
and you're just sitting back watching the world go by, and all of a sudden this giant shark comes out of the water.
I mean, it's funny because we're so tuned into all the news of this stuff, so we would know about it, know to look for it. So we kind of ruin a little bit. But just imagine if you just saw that though, you just were there, you're just like,
oh, it'd be fantastic! It'd be fantastic if it was like controlled with a button, like where you can soak those people with those water soakers. But if you could just make to a tourist was in the perfect place and then press the button,
Jaws will splash all over you. So
yeah.
So back to your book as we're wrapping it up. Now, this is something that you are updating every year?
It is, yeah. We're just working on the new edition at the moment. We've been working on it for a few weeks now. I say we because there is a small team of us now that work on it. We're trying to do a book of two halves because I get a lot of people say to me, there's more. I need more history, and then I get a lot of people say, "Well, I need more guide." So I've got two voices always say, "I want more guide, I want more history." So we're trying to do as much history as we can, and then for guides, we're trying to honor. I think is the best way. Is trying to honor the unofficial guides, the Len Tester model, to try and we've got a lot of data that we've picked up from the past events, and we're trying to use those to our best advantage. I've spoke to Len a few times. Len Tester, by the way, is an incredibly nice bloke. If you ever meet Len Tester, say hi. Yeah. Oh, what a guy. Anyway, so we're trying to put a lot of that. Last year we actually had a busy day guide that we used that tried to suggest, and then in retrospect we looked back and we analysed it, and we was actually pretty accurate on that. And then we've also got other bits and pieces of terms of data of when to go, what not to do, this and that. And then an actual touring plan. We've got several of those.
Oh, cool.
About 5 in the book, that we tested out on a number of nights when it was busy and when it was quiet. And it, take my hat off, it does seem to work. So we're going to tweak that because every year the layout is slightly different. The house locations are different. So we need to tweak all that information before it goes to print. And then the history side of it is just ongoing. We're just compiling that. I get, through Scare Zone and other things that I do, I get to speak to a lot of people that have been connected with the event over the years. So I'm sort of always interviewing them, making notes. And, if you see my desk, it's covered in stickies of, very interesting stories and anecdotes that people have told me that I've met them. So we're just compiling that. So I've got so much stuff for, every single year of Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando to add. And then obviously updating it for the previous year. And then what we think going forward. So there's just a hell of a lot of information to sift through at the moment, and a lot of work goes into it. But that's the Halloween Horror Nights book that we've got. We've also, I'm just coming towards the end of a Hitchcock book that I've been writing for a while now.
Nice.
It's going to focus on the. I haven't really told anyone this. It's a bit of a scoop for Creepy Kingdom. It's going to focus on the Psycho franchise.
Oh, awesome.
The Psycho film was so revolutionary for its time. It created a genre, and it did so many different things differently. And then we see it today almost as cliche and pastiche, but for its time, it was really revolutionary and groundbreaking. And I'm just trying to remind people of that, and then just bring in the context of what happened to it, and then how that franchise has evolved over time. Because I'm a huge fan of Hitchcock, but I'm also a huge fan of the actual sets, the house and the motel in Hollywood. And I was incredibly sad when I was last there in 2015 that the house in particular was incredibly run down and was sort of dilapidated. And I remember pinging off an email to them saying, if this was England, we look after our building treasures. Buckingham Palace doesn't sit there because we don't look after it. It takes a lot of time and money. Anyway, whether that helped or not, I don't know. But within a few months, they were actually refurbing it, putting it, changing all the wood on it and the shingles and painting it up. So I was quite joyed that they decided to look after it, because there was rumours when Universal were going to do this huge expansion. I say expansion. They were going to build on the backlot, houses and golf courses and things. So there was a lot of anticipation, about, I don't know if you remember, about 5-10 years ago, where they thought that they may demolish the house and the motel.
Oh, wow. No. I never even heard of that, actually.
Yeah,
That's nuts.
There was a lot of rumors about that. A lot of people were concerned. There were even, I remember seeing online, there were, what do you call it, where you can
like change.org or something like that?
Yeah, change.org. I don't know if change.org was around then, but definitely those kind of things. Petition, that was the word.
Yeah.
There were petitions to save the buildings at one point, because so many large Hollywood backlots, as you know, like the MGM one, for example, are all gone to developers. And there was a real concern that the huge Universal backlot would go down that route. And I know they've said they're not going to now, but in the back of my mind, I mean, what LA is like. I would never say never when it comes to something like
anything could happen, but I will say that the Psycho House is always part of the tour, the tram tour, and during Halloween Horror Nights, you're able to go and take a picture with Norman Bates in front of the house. So they're still utilizing it. It's not like it's a a forgotten thing. So I feel like it's not on the chopping block at all.
Well, this is the thing. I don't wholly trust them, because when I was there last time, they said to me, "What do you want to see?" And I said, "Right, the first thing I want to see, I need to go and see the Phantom of the Opera stage. I want to see the set from 2018?
Yeah, I don't even know.
Something ridiculously long time ago. They've still got majority of the sets saved.
Wow.
And they went, "No, you can't see it." So I said, "Well, why? It's there. It's been there for decades." No, we're not. No one's allowed in now. I said, "Well, people have seen." No. What else do you want to see?
Wow.
I said, "Well, Psycho House, Bates Motel, Hitchcock Bungalow. Yep. That's fine. Come on, let's go look at those." So we went and we saw those. And they wouldn't tell me why. And then I found out a few weeks later that they demolished the building that housed the original Phantom of the Opera stage.
They didn't tell you that? Wow.
No, they hadn't demolished it then. It was a few weeks after I'd been there.
They're about to do it. Interesting.
Yeah. And then I hear rumors that Secret Life of Pets attraction will be put on top of the old Phantom of the Opera soundstage. And I think to myself, oh, God, really? Secret Life of Pets. This is the problem I think Universal has always had. It's like the Jimmy Neutron or the Curious George thing. Is these things are all relevant now?
They're not timeless.
Who the hell? Yeah, who the hell is going to remember Jimmy Neutron in 5 years' time from now?
Right. Well, that's the game Universal plays, but I guess that's a whole other conversation.
That is. So I've got the Psycho book that I'm working on. I sort of slowed down working on it because the Halloween Horror Nights book has taken sort of precedence of my time at the moment. And then the other book that I mentioned previously, Universal Monsters Origins, which goes into the history of each of the famous Universal monsters. And then looks at the cinematic universe that they're going to be creating very soon, or have started to create. The introduction for it was actually going back was James Michael Roddy, the now Disney Imagineer, who's a huge Monsters fan, and he's also producing a documentary called Monster Kids about kids that grew up during the sort of mid 20th century when the monsters sort of came back and were incredibly popular. So it was
nice.
Very nice to work with him on that because he's a huge Monsters fan. I mean, I know he's also a huge Star Wars fan, so he's in his element creating these Star Wars experiences at the moment for Disney. But in the back of his mind, he's like, "Oh, I wish I was still at Universal," But he doesn't. He's he's doing all these Star Wars stuff. But no doubt the Universal monsters, now they're having this new universe, which is gonna, we hope, try and compete with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're going to be coming back. So it's how they manifest that into the parks, whether they're going to have attractions or shows, because the problem with the Universal monsters, as a wider point, a lot of people today will remember things like the Beetlejuice show, where the monsters are presented as being quite camp and
right,
see, and not particularly scary.
Or the Monsters Cafe, where they're holding Paisa Slita or whatever.
Exactly. They're holding a chicken drumstick and a pizza in the other hand, So they need to bring them back with a new image. And they will, we believe that they will be at Universal, will be at Halloween Horror Nights this year. So it'll be interesting, I think, going forward with them, how they will be manifested in the parks. But if you want to read about how terrifying they used to be and where they came from, because a lot of people don't realize all of this backstory, this history that they have, get a copy of the book, because we go into great detail what they did and how they did it. And these things, when they came out originally, they scared the out of people in the cinemas.
Sure.
They were what the equivalents today of any incredibly scary horror film.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Now, there's I would say there's a great documentary called oh my god, now I'm drawing the blank of it. What is Nightmares in Red, White, and Blue? I think that's what it's called.
Oh yeah.
Where it shows what was going on in American history was represented, like the real bad things in American history, how it affected or it's portrayed through horror films at the time. That's kind of what it's about, and it talks about the Great Depression and as far as the time period of the Universal monsters and all that stuff. So it's very fascinating.
This is it. A lot of the writers, directors, producers of these films were World War I veterans. And a lot of them saw the actual horrors that had happened in Europe and other places, and brought some of that with them in their writing style and the style. I mean, so many German immigrants, because Germany in the 1920s and before was pretty much the Hollywood of its time, and all of the big talent was in Germany. I mean, that's where Alfred Hitchcock did his apprenticeship, was in Germany, learning the film techniques out there. So when, for example, World War II broke out and they couldn't physically, make their films over there, a lot of them went to the States where it was, relatively safe to carry on with their art. And they bring, a lot of that to the table. And although these films are, thank God, they're fantasy, they're founded in fact.
Sure. Yeah, so that's awesome that you dive into that stuff, and obviously a lot of our listeners are fans of Universal Monsters, and let's hope this is the beginning of Universal Monsters renaissance, I guess.
Oh, so do I. If you look through time, when these characters first came about in the 30s and 40s, essentially, they've come back time and time again. They came back in 50s and 60s, and then they came back in the 80s and the early 90s, and there's really no pun intended, there's no killing these things. They do keep coming back because they are so good. So I'm hoping, like you say, that with this new universe they come back and have another renaissance.
I think they will. I think it'll, but who knows. So you got this Universal Monsters book out coming soon. You've got your Hitchcock book and HHN for 2017. What kind of release dates are we looking at for your next books?
Universal Monsters came out at the end of last year, just before Christmas, so you can buy that book now. That is for sale. The easiest and cheapest way to get it is Amazon. You can get it in Targets and Walmart and is it Barnes and Noble? I think the other one that stocks them.
Yep.
In the UK, the equivalent of Barnes and Noble is Waterstones. So you can get it on all those places. But as I say, Amazon is definitely the cheapest and quickest way. It's always in stock with Amazon. So you can get that book now. The previous editions of the unofficial story and guide to Halloween Horror Nights are currently available online, and in all the same places. But the new one, probably, I haven't set a release date for that or the Hitchcock book yet. Probably Hitchcock in the next month or so, and then probably a month or 2 months later for the Halloween Horror Nights guide.
Oh, all right. So just for the guide purposes of Halloween Horror Nights, releasing it so far for the event, even before the announcements of the houses, how does that kind of tie in to as far as the guide element goes, when you don't really know what's going to be there yet?
Well, this is how you know your rumor sources are not bad, because that's although Universal do give me some hints from time to time, they won't release to me a list of the houses ahead of time.
Right.
So it's the sources that you've used over the years to get information. Some of if I look back on previous years, the ones that have given me spot on information, it'll be those that I go to, and I never trump Universal, so I will never put in the book, oh, by the way, I know for a fact this is happening.
Right.
It's their event, and they need to release it to the public. I will only ever say, not in print, but I will say on the website or on shows like this and Scare Zone, I would say, this is a rumor that we've heard, this is what we think. I will never, if I do know something for a fact, I won't tempt to steal their thunder, that's for sure. So I won't put that in the book, but I will suggest things. I mean, last year, for example, I knew quite a lot of the houses that hadn't been announced. So there's a section that I call the reading list, which is kind of the watching list. So I'll say, because a lot of people say to me, how do I prep for Halloween Horror Nights? I say, well, buy the book and then watch these films. So in the book, we put a list of films that we feel that if you watch these films, it will enhance your experience of Halloween Horror Nights. And a lot of people, do that every year. And if you don't, I would definitely recommend it, because if you take, like last year, for example, Halloween 2 wasn't a film that I'd seen for 20 years. So I had to, I go back and I watch these films. And then when I go through the houses, I then can see how much attention to detail has been done.
Right.
And it does enhance the event for me on that basis. Other people do it because they want to see what things happen so they can then experience them and fear and then anticipate the scares that are coming. So, it does definitely enhance people's event in that regard. So that's another important section. But if for houses, that's kind of where we go if we don't know the full list, or if at least we don't wish to tell everyone the full list. That's what we will suggest. I
got you. Alrighty, cool. Well, I think I've taken up enough of your time. You got to get back to writing. So,
got to increase the arthritis in my hands. No, I don't have arthritis, but sometimes of an evening, I'm sort of like struggling to grip the beer can, So,
gotcha.
Piping,
So, if people want to find all your stuff online, like your website, social media, stuff like that, where can they go?
Well, the best place to go to is hhnunofficial.com. That links through to our Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all the others. Rosie that runs all that, she'll tell you that we try and engage as much as we can every day. If it's not me, it'll be her or another one of my colleagues on there. So we try and engage as much as we can. We try and update the website as much as we can. If you wish to find out even more information, then scarezone.com with Logan and Scott and I. That's our other show that we do. We put information on there, and you can listen to us, and we talk about what we think's coming and what's happening. And as you rightly said earlier, we interview a lot of interesting people, and we've got quite a few more very interesting interviews coming up that we're just trying to get diaries sorted for at the moment. And then the other podcast that I do that is far more relaxed. You just go to an English pub with a beer, and we don't have a script or we don't have anything. We don't have any production values at all, and that's Diz After Dark, where we kind of get merry and discuss Disney, Universal, Halloween Horror Nights, pretty much anything really, but mostly the theme parks of Central Orlando. So that's the other than dizafterdark.com. That's where we sort of let our hair down. And the last couple of shows we had Jim Hill on the last episode. And Jim Hill is always a charm. I unfortunately couldn't make that episode, but it was a great episode to listen to. He was telling us all about different rides and shows and things that are coming in the future for the resort, and that was really fun. And then the other show that was quite interesting was the one before that, was where we all actually physically got drunk while we were recording, which was quite interesting. And I think the Disney lawyers are already typing us a very long-winded email about that episode.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and probably some lawyers from some other organisations as well.
Oh, boy.
So if you want to listen to us let our hair down and just tell it as it is, if you like, with a guest now and again, that is dizafterdark.com.
Awesome. A lot of stuff going on there, Christopher.
I don't know where I find the time. Well, I do know where I find the time. I've pretty much given up on television at the moment because I don't have the time to see it.
We all got to make sacrifices, but
yeah.
Well,
We've
also
got the the Haunted Mansion documentary that we're
Oh, of course. Yes, Christopher is a producer on the film, Foolish Mortals. So that's, unless you're talking about some other Haunted Mansion documentary I don't know about.
Wow. You should know.
It's like you're double crossing me, you're two timing me.
Do you know what? There's two things I was saying to Logan the other day. I cannot wait until Foolish Mortals comes out, because as much as being a producer on it, I'm just so keen to see it. It's like if I can compare myself very, very briefly once off to Steven Spielberg, the reason he made Jurassic Park was because he wanted to watch Jurassic Park. Right. And I really want to see Foolish Mortals. And the other thing is Logan has just directed a film, a fly on the wall documentary, A Week in the Life of Dick Van Dyke. I can't wait to see that as well.
Interesting.
I mean, these are the people are going, I can't wait to watch The Mummy or the new whichever new Star Wars film is coming out this year, and I'm like, I don't really care. I want to see Dick Van Dyke and Foolish Mortals. That's what I tell people. I want to see them. You can keep your Marvel Cinematic Universe and your Star Wars
Well, the thing about that is, it makes sense to me why you're saying that, because we live in a time where we don't have to accept what's being put out to the masses. We could find things that are specifically, our favorite topics or themes or whatever, know. So it's I get what you're saying, because you're like, I'm sure the new Star Wars movie is going to be awesome, but like I want to see Foolish Mortals too. That's why I'm making it, right? So
this is the thing. You see, when I go back to my book, Universal started writing the damn thing and then gave up, essentially, didn't want to continue. Why has Disney not actually made a documentary of their own about the Haunted Mansion?
I don't know. I mean, it's funny, I brought that up to Jason Sorrell, little teaser here for the film, I guess, because he wrote the book that Disney put out, which is the history of the Haunted Mansion, which is essentially it's all laid out there. Yeah, it's one of the most. I think it is probably the most expansive history.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Plus he has access to the archives, so it's So there's that.
Like the Vatican archives; they only let certain people down there.
Right. So yeah, he's and I think I know I brought that up because that's clear. That's not the film that I'm making. I'm just because because I was and again I was like I'm not. That's not even my my job or my desire to make that film, the history of the Haunted Mansion, because that's the thing. I wouldn't want to make it without the access. It has to be official. Like, you know, I mean, I've seen unofficial documentaries about or pieces about the Haunted Mansion, and they're good, but it's missing the officialness of it. You know, I don't know this. And because the story of the ride coming to be is just is even just as fascinating as the ride itself. You know?
Yeah, that's right.
And I don't know. And Jason's like, I don't know why they didn't do it or not, because he currently is not a Disney employee, as we mentioned. And he's like, maybe someday someone will do it. He even put a little good karma out there. He's like, maybe it'll be you. And I was like, maybe. Maybe Disney would be so happy with me. They'll say, please do this. It's unlikely, but you never know.
This is it. Jason's currently producing the new Jimmy Fallon ride at Universal.
Oh, okay.
And I cannot wait until that opens, because, you know, he hasn't told me anything about it. I've only read stuff about it, and I just can't wait, because I know how talented he is and what he's done in the past, you know, particularly with Halloween Horror Nights, because I've, you know, written extensively about it in the past. But, you know, so I can't wait to see what he's done with that. You know, that's another exciting project that we come in this year.
Really? I didn't realize he was working on that, because he's the top dog on it. Oh, because when I spoke with him and I interviewed him for the film, he said he was working on Universal Singapore. I think that's.
Oh.
So I don't know. Maybe he just does everything.
But don't forget, it's opening very soon. So I mean, it's done, isn't it? I suppose.
Right. Yeah. He probably had moved on from whatever he was doing at that point. Yeah. That was a few months ago when I spoke with him, and at that point, you'd imagine it's just building the the design element of it. Joey Fallon, right? I'm sure it was over by then. So
this is the thing, because they're such a small team, they're forever busy. This is the.
Yeah, maybe they are doing all these things at once. Who knows? But all right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and it's a blast. And you know,
thank you.
I'll have to have you on again, because we obviously have so much more to talk about. Because
we can. You name a topic, I'll be back. I've enjoyed every minute of it. I'm sure we've got stacks we can go over.
Right. Very good. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you, James.